The morning light in Jules' home did not arrive like a sudden event. It came slowly, like it was unsure whether Nia deserved it yet. She sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. Last night still felt unreal. Not the heartbreak. No, that part was painfully real, but the way she had fallen asleep without crying for the first time in days. The way someone else had stayed near her pain without running away from it. Jules had been that presence. And that confused her more than anything else. Outside the room, the house was already awake. Quiet footsteps moved through the corridor. Soft voices. The sound of life continuing as if nothing had broken inside her. Nia slowly stood up and walked to the mirror. She did not recognize herself immediately. Her eyes looked tired but less shattered. Her face still carried the weight of everything Toby had done, but something underneath it was shifting. Something fragile. Hope, maybe. She hated that word right now, because hope was dangerous. A soft knock came at the door. Nia? Jules' voice. She turned slightly. Yes, I'm leaving for work in a bit. There's food downstairs. Eat something, okay? Silence. Then Nia nodded even though he could not see it properly. Okay. Jules paused like he wanted to say more, but didn't. I'll be back in the evening. Footsteps faded, and suddenly, the room felt bigger again. Lonelier. Downstairs, Jules stood in the kitchen longer than necessary. His driver was waiting. His schedule was packed. Meetings, reports, pressure, all the things that usually mattered. But today, his mind kept slipping back upstairs. To her. To the way she had almost broken last night and still didn't fully collapse. To the way she had looked at him like he was the only stable thing in a world that had betrayed her. He exhaled sharply. Sir, his assistant called. We need to leave. Jules nodded once. Let's go. But even as he walked out, something in him stayed behind. At Toby's place, silence was not peace. It was frustration. Toby sat on his couch, phone in hand, staring at Nia's contact. No reply. No call back. No access. That alone was making him restless. You can't just disappear on me, he muttered. His ego was bruised, but beneath it was something else. Fear. Fear of losing control over someone he had assumed would always come back. He dialed again. This time, voicemail. His jaw tightened. She's just emotional, he told himself. She'll come back. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it fully. Back at Jules' house, Nia finally stepped out of the room. The hallway felt unfamiliar in the daytime. Yesterday had been emotional blur. Today was reality. Mary, the house helper, smiled softly when she saw her. Good morning, ma'am. Breakfast is ready. Nia hesitated at the title. Ma'am. She wasn't used to that anymore. She nodded slightly. Thank you. She sat at the table, but didn't immediately eat. Her mind was somewhere else. Jules' voice replayed in her head. Don't blame yourself. You can't keep someone who doesn't want to be kept. Those words should have been simple. But they weren't. Because if Toby didn't want her, then what was she holding on to? At the office, Jules was not himself. His team noticed immediately. He was present, but distracted. During a meeting, he paused mid-sentence. Sir, someone asked. Jules blinked. Continue. But even as the meeting went on, his phone stayed untouched on the table. Until it rang. Unknown number. He frowned slightly and stepped outside. Hello. A pause. Then, a voice he did not expect. Toby. Who are you to her? Toby asked directly. Jules' expression darkened slightly. Excuse me? I'm talking about Nia. A silence stretched between them. Jules leaned slightly against the corridor wall. And you are? I'm her boyfriend. The word landed, but not strongly, not convincingly. Jules exhaled slowly. A boyfriend doesn't usually cheat. That hit. Toby's voice tightened. Stay out of my relationship. Jules looked out the window. Calm. Controlled. I already am, he said. She's not in your house. Another silence. Then Toby spoke lower. She will come back to me. Jules replied without emotion. If she wanted to, she already would have. And he ended the call. Back at the house, Nia had finally eaten half her food. Mary was watching her carefully, like she was afraid she might disappear again. You should go out a little, ma'am, Mary suggested gently. Fresh air will help. Nia shook her head. I don't feel like it. But even as she said it, she stood up. I'll just sit in the garden. Mary smiled faintly. That's good too. The garden was quiet. Too quiet. Nia sat on a bench, looking at flowers she didn't register. Her mind was heavy again, but not like before. Before, it had been pain. Now it was confusion. Because for the first time, she wasn't completely alone in it. And that scared her. Jules returned home earlier than expected that evening. He didn't announce himself. He just walked in. And stopped. Because Nia was in the garden, sitting still, looking like someone trying not to fall apart again. He stayed where he was for a moment, watching. Then he walked closer. You didn't go inside all day? He asked. Nia turned slightly startled. Oh, I didn't hear you come in. He sat beside her, not too close. Just enough. I finished early, he said. A pause. Then, you're thinking too much again. Nia let out a small, tired breath. I can't stop it. Jules nodded. You don't have to stop it. Just don't believe everything it tells you. She looked at him. That look again. The one that was slowly becoming dangerous for both of them. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Jules didn't answer immediately. Because even he wasn't fully sure. Finally, he said, because you needed it. That's it. He shrugged slightly. That's enough. But it wasn't. Not really. And both of them knew it. Somewhere far away, Toby was still calling. Still texting. Still losing control. But Nia's phone stayed silent. Because for the first time, she wasn't reaching back. And in the silence between healing and falling, something unfamiliar was beginning to grow. Something neither of them had named yet. But it was already there. Breathing quietly between two broken people who were slowly starting to feel whole again. The night did not feel like night in Jules' house anymore. It felt like a pause in reality. Nia stood by the window of her room, watching the faint movement of trees outside. The wind was slow, careful, almost respectful of her silence. But her mind wasn't silent. It was loud again. Not with Toby this time. With questions. Why was she still here? Why was Jules doing all this? And why did her chest feel slightly lighter every time he spoke to her like she mattered? She pressed her fingers against the glass. Cold. Real. Grounding. But her thoughts still drifted. Downstairs, Jules was still awake. He sat in his study, documents open in front of him but untouched. His assistant had sent 3 reminders. He ignored them all. Instead, he kept thinking about her sitting in the garden earlier that day. Quiet. Not crying. Just thinking. That worried him more than tears ever did. Because silence after pain usually meant deeper storms. His phone vibrated. A message. Toby again. I want to talk to her. Give her the phone. Jules stared at it for a moment. Then locked the screen. No reply. At Toby's end, things were not calm anymore. He paced his room like a man losing something invisible, but essential. She can't just switch off like this, he muttered. He tried calling again. No answer. Again. No answer. His frustration turned into anger, but underneath it was panic. Because deep down, he knew something had shifted, and he didn't know how to pull it back. The next morning came softer than expected. Nia woke earlier this time, not because she was peaceful, but because her sleep had become lighter. More aware. She sat on the bed for a while before stepping out. In the hallway, she heard voices. Jules and someone else. She paused. Client meeting got moved, an assistant was saying. Also, sir, there are rumors in the office. Jules' voice was calm. What rumors? A hesitation. About you and a woman staying at your house. Silence followed. Nia froze slightly behind the wall. Then Jules spoke. Focus on work. Ignore it. But sir. I said ignore it. His tone wasn't harsh. But it ended the conversation. Nia stepped back quietly and returned to her room. Her chest tightened slightly. Rumors. That word always changed how people looked at you. Even when nothing was true. Even when everything was complicated. At breakfast, she didn't mention it. Jules didn't either. But there was something different in the air. Slight distance. Controlled silence. Nia noticed it immediately. "You didn't sleep well?" she asked softly. Jules looked up from his plate. "I slept fine."
A lie.
She didn't call him out. Instead, she nodded and continued eating. But something inside her shifted slightly, like a door closing just a little. At Toby's place, things escalated. He finally got a response, not from Nia, but from someone at Jules' office. A careless message. "She's staying at his house. Everyone is talking." Toby stared at the screen for a long time, then laughed. Not humor. Something darker. "So that's it," he muttered. He grabbed his keys. By midday, Jules was in a meeting when his assistant rushed in. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." Jules didn't look up. "I'm busy." "It's urgent." A pause. Then, Toby walked in. Without permission. Without hesitation. The room went silent immediately. Jules slowly stood up. "So," Jules said calmly, "you've decided to show up physically now." Toby smiled, but it was forced. "I just came to see the man keeping my girlfriend in his house." A few staff members exchanged looks. Jules motioned them out. They left quickly.
Now, it was just the two of them.
Tension filled the room instantly. "She's not your property," Jules said. Toby stepped closer. "And she's not yours either." Jules didn't react emotionally.
He rarely did.
But his voice lowered slightly. "She is a person recovering from betrayal, not a possession to argue over." That hit harder than Toby expected. But he didn't back down. "I made a mistake," Toby said quickly. "People make mistakes. Then fix them properly," Jules replied. "Not by chasing her where she's trying to heal." Silence. Heavy. Then Toby's voice dropped. "Is she in love with you now?" That question changed the air instantly. Jules looked at him for a moment longer than necessary, then said, "That's not your concern." But the pause before it told Toby enough.
His jaw tightened.
"You're lying," Toby said. Jules stepped forward slightly.
"No," he said.
"You're just late." Back at the house, Nia was trying to distract herself. She cleaned small things. Folded clothes. Rearranged nothing important. Anything to stop thinking. But her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She hesitated. Then answered. "Toby." His voice came fast. "I came to see him today." Her hand froze. "What?" "He's keeping you there, right?" Nia shook her head immediately.
"No.
It's not like that." "Then come back," Toby said quickly. Silence. Her throat tightened. "I can't," she whispered. That answer surprised even her. Toby went quiet, then softer. "You don't understand what you're doing." Nia closed her eyes. "I think I do." And she ended the call. Her heart was beating faster now, but not from fear. From clarity she didn't fully understand yet. Evening came. Jules returned home later than usual. Tired, but controlled. He found Nia sitting in the living room, waiting. That alone made him pause. "You're still awake?" he asked. She nodded.
Then,
"I heard what happened." A silence. He sat across from her. "News travels fast," he said. "I didn't want problems for you," she added quickly. Jules looked at her carefully. "You didn't cause them." A pause. Then Nia spoke softly. "Why are you really helping me?" There it was again. That question. Jules leaned back slightly. "I already answered that."
"No," she said.
Not fully. Silence stretched. This time he didn't avoid it immediately. He studied her face. Not broken now. Just searching. Finally, he said, "Because you remind me of what it feels like to be left behind." Nia looked down slightly. "That's not a good reason." "It's honest," he replied. Another silence.
But different this time.
Less defensive. More exposed. Nia whispered, "And what if I start depending on you?" Jules didn't answer immediately, because that was the part he was avoiding too. Finally, "Then I'll make sure you don't fall because of it." That answer should have been safe. But it wasn't comforting. It felt personal. Too personal. Later that night, Nia couldn't sleep.
She stood in the hallway again.
And saw Jules in the kitchen. water glass in hand, thinking, not working, just thinking. For the first time, he looked tired in a different way. Not professional tired, human tired. She stepped closer. "You're still awake," she said quietly. He turned slightly. "Neither are you." A pause. Then she asked softly, "Do you ever get tired of being strong for everyone?" That question landed somewhere deeper than she intended. Jules looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "All the time." Silence. Nia nodded slowly. "I think I'm starting to feel less broken," she admitted. Jules didn't respond immediately. Then, "That's good." But his voice wasn't neutral. It was softer, almost careful. And in that moment, something shifted again. Not spoken, not defined, but felt. Between distance and closeness. Between healing and something neither of them were ready to name. Nia looked away first.
"Good night," she said.
"Good night," Jules replied. But neither moved immediately, because for the first time, leaving the moment felt harder than staying in it. And somewhere far away, Toby stared at his phone in silence, realizing something he didn't want to accept. She wasn't just away anymore. She was becoming unreachable, and Jules was becoming the reason. Morning arrived with a different weight in Jules' house. Not heavy like before, not light either. Somewhere in between, like the world was still deciding what it wanted Nia to feel. She woke earlier than usual, not because she was restless, but because something inside her no longer allowed long, deep escape into sleep. She sat up slowly, brushing hair from her face. And for the first time, Toby was not the first thought in her mind. That realization startled her. Instead, it was Jules. Not as a feeling, not as emotion, just his presence.
Calm,
Controlled, constant. She didn't understand why that felt like a shift. But it did. Downstairs, Jules was already on a call. His tone was professional, steady. But his eyes betrayed something else, distraction. "Yes, reschedule it," he said. "No, I won't be attending that meeting."
Pause.
"I have personal matters today." He ended the call.
Personal matters.
He rarely used that term, because he rarely allowed anything personal to exist. When Nia entered the dining area, she found him there,
Sitting.
reading something on his phone. He looked up. "You're awake early." She nodded. "Couldn't sleep much." A pause. Then he gestured slightly toward the table. "Eat something." This time, she didn't resist. She sat. But there was something different today. Less distance. Not closeness yet. Just awareness. At Toby's end, sleep had become impossible. He had tried everything. Distraction. Silence.
Pride.
None of it worked. Because in his mind, Nia wasn't just gone. She was being taken. And that idea fed something dangerous inside him. He grabbed his phone. Typed a message. Deleted it. Typed again. Finally sent. "I'm coming." At Jules' office later that day, tension was already waiting. Whispers. Glances. Half-finished conversations that stopped when he entered. His assistant approached carefully. "Sir, the rumors have increased." Jules didn't stop walking. "Ignore them. It's affecting staff focus." He paused slightly, then turned. "Let them focus on work instead of my personal life." His voice wasn't raised, but it was final. Still, as he entered his office, he knew something was building outside his control. Because rumors never stayed rumors for long. They became stories. And stories demanded conclusions. Back at the house, Nia was trying to keep herself busy again. But today, her mind was quieter. Not empty, just less chaotic. Mary entered softly. "Ma'am, someone came to the gate earlier." Nia looked up immediately.
Who?
Mary hesitated.
A man.
"He said he knows you." Nia already knew before hearing the name. "Toby." Mary nodded. Nia stood up too quickly. Her heart tightened. "Did he say anything?"
No, ma'am.
Sir Jules handled it. That name again. Handled it. Nia's chest tightened in a different way now.
She didn't know why.
But she felt it. Jules returned home earlier than expected. And he wasn't alone in his thoughts. Nia was waiting. This time, not in confusion. In concern. You saw him? She asked immediately. Jules removed his watch calmly. Yes. What did he say? Nothing that mattered. A pause. Then Nia stepped closer. He shouldn't come here. Jules looked at her. Agreed. Silence stretched between them, but something underneath it felt different. Not tension, not fear. Something more subtle. Concern on both sides. For different reasons. That evening, Jules did something unusual. He turned off his phone early. Nia noticed immediately. You don't usually do that, she said. He leaned back on the sofa. I don't usually deal with chaos outside my house. A faint silence. Then he added, but lately, it follows me home. Nia looked down. I'm sorry. Jules immediately shook his head.
No.
Not you. That response hit her harder than expected, because it meant something important. She wasn't the problem, but she was part of the change. The next day, Jules surprised her again. Get ready, he said. Nia blinked. For what? Lunch outside. She hesitated. I don't think I should. You need air, he interrupted simply. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't an order either. It was something in between. So she agreed. The restaurant was quiet. Not crowded. Not loud. Just peaceful in a way Nia hadn't experienced in a long time. She looked around slowly. I forgot places like this exist, she said softly. Jules sat opposite her. They exist. People just forget to use them. A faint smile crossed her face. It was small, but real. And Jules noticed. That was the problem. He always noticed. As they ate, conversations stayed light, safe, careful, until Nia asked, do people at your office think I'm a problem? Jules paused, then replied honestly. They think I've changed. Is that bad? He looked at her for a moment.
No. That was all he said.
But it wasn't the full truth. Because change scared people. Especially when they couldn't understand it. Outside the restaurant, Toby was watching. He had followed them. Not because he was calm, but because he was not. He saw them sitting together.
Talking.
Laughing slightly. That small moment broke something in him. He walked in immediately. Nia saw him first. Her body froze. Toby, Jules noticed instantly. He stood up slowly. Toby stopped in front of their table. So this is it, Toby said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Nia stood up too. Please don't do this here. Toby ignored her. He looked at Jules. You're enjoying this? Jules didn't react emotionally. I'm having lunch. That's my girlfriend. Jules corrected calmly. Not anymore. That sentence hit the air like glass breaking. Nia closed her eyes briefly, because something inside her reacted to it. Not guilt, not fear. Something else. Awareness. Toby stepped closer. She doesn't belong to you. Jules replied without raising his voice. She doesn't belong to you either. Silence. Heavy.
Public.
Unavoidable. Nia finally spoke. Stop it. Both men turned toward her. Her voice shook slightly. I am not something to argue over. That line shifted everything. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Toby softened slightly. Nia, come with me. She didn't move. Her silence was answer enough. Toby's face changed.
Pain.
Then anger. Then denial. You're confused, he said. Jules stepped slightly forward. She's not. That was the first time Jules truly intervened emotionally. Not as a bystander, but as someone protecting distance. Toby looked between them, and something inside him snapped quietly. I'm not leaving this, he said finally, then turned and walked out. The ride back home was silent. Nia stared out the window. Jules kept both hands on the wheel. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Nia whispered, I didn't want that to happen. Jules replied calmly. It was going to happen eventually. A pause. Then she asked something she didn't fully understand herself. Do you think I'm doing something wrong? Jules looked at her briefly.
No.
Silence again. Then he added, but things are changing. That word again.
Changing.
Nia turned slightly toward him. In a bad way? Jules didn't answer immediately, because honesty wasn't simple anymore. Finally, in a complicated way. That night, Nia couldn't stay in her room. She walked into the garden again and found Jules there before her, sitting quietly, looking at nothing. She approached slowly. "You come here often?" she asked softly. He nodded slightly. "When I think too much." Nia sat beside him, a comfortable distance apart. For a while, neither spoke. Then she said quietly, "I don't know what I'm becoming." Jules looked at her. "You're becoming yourself again." A pause. Then she asked, "And what about you?" That question made him silent for longer than usual. Finally, he said, "I don't know yet." That was the most honest thing he had said so far. A soft wind passed through the garden. Neither moved, but something shifted anyway. Not visible, not spoken, just felt. Between two people slowly crossing a line neither of them had drawn. And somewhere far away, Toby was still awake, still refusing acceptance, still holding on to something that was already slipping away. And this time, he wasn't planning to let it go quietly.